Every so often, a game concept comes along that is immediately appealing. Hardspace Shipbreaker looks to me to be one such game. The idea is a very compelling one. A shipbreaker, alone in the isolation of space, set the immense and very dangerous task of breaking apart these massive spaceships. The game has been slowly revealed over the past months now, and there's still not really a full picture just yet. But I thought it about time that I should take a closer look at this and perhaps bring it to the attention of space-loving fans that might not be aware of it. So, from the makers of Homeworld, Deserts of Karak, the developers already have a good idea of otherworldly activities and environments, and this seems to be perfectly fitting for Hardspace Shipbreaker. The idea here, as the developers express it, is that as a player you won't actively go in search of the story, but rather that story will come to you in the form of ships that you have to figure out how to dismantle. Now, if like me as a kid you were the type to take apart old electrical equipment, and I guess if you were lucky enough old cars too, then you can probably see the appeal of Shipbreaker. Of course, it's not as easy as dismantling an old radio, however. Generally speaking, a radio doesn't explosively decompress. That then is just one of the dangers you'll face in this game. In the employ of a corporation known as Lynx, it is your job to pull apart as many of these potential death traps as you can. Now, you aren't just doing this for pay, however, at least not in the traditional sense of a wage. Instead, you're working your way of paying off a massive debt that you owe to the Lynx Corporation, who currently owns you body and soul. That's ownership right down to the DNA level, by the way. That's right, there's no getting away from this corporation. If you die in service, which let's face it is very likely, then the Lynx will simply reconstruct you from your DNA records and then put you straight back to work. Breaking apart a ship then is the real challenge. You'll have a number of tools to do this, and one of the primary of these is the beam cutter. Developer Blackbird Interactive expressed that the design and function of this tool was actually a very challenging development, and honestly, it's not hard to see why. With the beam cutter, you have the ability to cut sections from the ship, or indeed any other object, from any direction or angle, and the cut piece will precisely match the cut you have made. So yeah, very unusual way of cutting things. I think a lot of games actually attempt this, but very few pull it off successfully. So disassembling the ships of course takes place from the inside as you work your way both outwards as well as towards the prized core of the ship. The potential for things to go wrong meanwhile is very real. Whether you get electrocuted or blown up or even lost to the depths of space, there's plenty of danger to be found out there. The game obviously relies very heavily on zero-G physics, and this is something that often adds immensely to space games. However, it's also something that some games find very tricky to implement in a manner that offers both suitable levels of fun and realism. Hopefully then we'll find out how this particular aspect of the game fares as soon as we get hands-on with it. Now, it appears that each ship would also come with its own story. As you work your way through each of these vessels, you'll uncover pieces of its history and build a story of the ships. And from there, as you pull apart ship after ship, your understanding of the Hardspace universe will continue to grow. It's a nice touch indeed. And certainly, there seems to have been plenty of thought gone into the game world itself. Clearly set in the far future, Earth itself isn't in a particularly good place. The more wealthy people have moved to Mars or indeed other planets in the solar system. Meanwhile though, space of course remains somewhat of a hazard. The visuals of the game, meanwhile, look very interesting. Rather than going hardcore realism here, we have something that is far more stylistic, and there's certainly more than a little influence and inspiration from Homeworld to be seen here. Personally, I'm looking forward to seeing what designs the developers come up with for these ships. Hopefully then, there's enough variation to keep things going. Hardspace Shipbreaker is set to go into early access on the 16th of June. There's no pricing information for the game just yet. Now, whilst this is an early access title, and I know that sends alarm bells ringing for some of you out there, I do think that it's worth pointing out that this is also coming from an established developer with a good history of games behind them. I'm very much looking forward then to seeing where this all goes. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.